Hello, I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS Accountants Minute podcast based on edition 408. It's time to go beyond the numbers. It is indeed. Accountants and bookkeepers and business advisors have a great opportunity to be offering additional services, some that we call real accounting services, to help your clients better manage their businesses during what is turning out to be very difficult times. Your clients need real-time insight and strategic direction. They need you to guide them. The ESS BIZTOOLS financial forecasting package can become a game changer to assist you to deliver the resources and services that your SME clients do not have. They would have them if they were a wee bit bigger and they had the cash flow to justify the employment of a qualified accountant, if they could find one. But they haven't got that cash flow at this stage, but they need an input of services to assist them to run better and more valuable businesses. This is not a hypothetical opportunity. It's a growing opportunity. It's been talked about by a number of industry leaders over the last 3 years and was projected to be occurring many years ago. So you can become the strategic advisor SMEs desperately need. Most successful businesses, whether they're ASX listed companies or ambitious SMEs, don't fly blind. They have real-time information delivered to them on an ongoing basis. Timely reports, scenario planning, financial forecasts. An advisor with accounting qualifications who can challenge assumptions made by the leadership team, who can respond to questions of what-if type natures relating to costing, financial projections, overseas currencies, benefits that can be attained from government grants, understanding the financial projections, especially the cash flow projections, and being able to communicate to your clients if and when they need additional funds in the business, and then determining where those funds are going to come from. Is it from the resources of the current shareholders? Or is it through a loan raised from a bank or other financial organisation? And if so, what security will be required? I know in some cases there's banks who will now lend without security, but that probably depends on the amount of money that your clients need. And then there's the opportunity to avoid having to pay interest on loans and make repayments of principal by your client looking to raise capital from the public. And that's not as far-fetched as what it may have seemed 10 years ago, or what even might be the opinion of some of your clients at this stage. I think you need to take them on a bit of a journey and recount to them how companies started in England about 400 odd years ago. As the explorers set out to sail the world to discover countries, continents, a lot of them were put together as financial entities. The ship, the captain received the percentage of the profits on that voyage. That was the start of companies, and they were made limited liability to protect people, and it's grown from there. So millions of businesses over the years have grown with shareholder funds being offered to those companies. Small businesses can now avail themselves of this opportunity. But my observations are that a lot of SMEs think it's too hard. Sure, it's different. And sure, they may have to do some reading and perhaps undertake a couple of courses in corporate governance, company director duties, and just have an understanding of how the system flows. But you can assist them on this so that they can understand the processes. Because raising capital as a crowdsource funding equity raising company is available to every company in Australia that's a private company or an unlisted public company with an annual international turnover of less than 25 million Australian dollars and gross value of assets on an international basis less than 25 million Australian dollars. And neither the company nor any subsidiary of that company is listed on a stock exchange anywhere in the world. You have to work through an Australian Security Investment Commission appointed crowdsource funding intermediary, but there's a laid out process. And about $430 million has been raised by companies who have successfully gone through the crowdsource funding equity raising process. Oh, and I forgot to mention how much capital could be raised. Up to $5 million in a 12-month period. And if at the end of that, the company still has new projects and can put together a new business case, they could raise another $5 million in the following year and the following year. And as I read the legislation, and so on. Now, the money's just not handed over, of course. They need your assistance. First of all, to have implemented proper internal controls and appropriate systems within the business. And then to have prepared a realistic business plan, looking at the next 3 to 5 years. Where's this business going? What's the vision of the directors and the leadership team? What's the end result going to be? And once the business plan is prepared, the financial forecasts can be prepared, the predictive accounting reports, budgets for each individual business operation, the key drivers, which are those key areas that can cost a lot of money, inventories, debtors, work in progress, capital expenditure, research and development projects, dividend payments, loan repayments, if the company already has loans, are all some of the items which could be covered in the key drivers as sub-accounts, so that they're not hidden within the financial forecast. They're there because they need to be evaluated each month. What is the investment in the various inventory categories? What was it budgeted at? Why has it increased? Can it be reduced? Now, at times they might not be able to be reduced because of the problems around the world. If your client is importing products from overseas, they may find that the shipping arrangements are a little bit different to what they were a few years ago, because ships are diverting to avoid the unfortunate wars in the Middle East, in Europe, and now in India and Pakistan. And there's other minor outbreaks, unfortunately, around the world also occurring. But this allows you to offer real financial services to your clients because you can prepare the projections. And then you can be the storyteller to sit down and outline to the directors and to the leadership team where the business is likely to end up. Now, once you've done that and got their acceptance that and their sign on, this is our vision, this is our business plan, this is our financial forecasts, which are linked back to that business plan. You could then proceed to value the company in its present state. What is it worth? Then your clients need to be briefed on what crowdsource funding equity raising is all about, how it works. What is the power of the crowdsource funding intermediary? What's the process? Who can be the investors? What's the restrictions on a retail investor as compared to a sophisticated investor? The directors and leadership team need to understand all this. You should then introduce them to one of the crowdsource funding intermediaries. Unfortunately, the ASIC has appointed at least 16, and it probably could be more. It's pretty hard to get a list of who they are. But in the current situation, there's only 3 or 4 that appear to be proactively in business. And that's a shame. Now, one of the reasons there's only 3 or 4 out of the at least 16 that have been granted licenses is there's not enough deal flow. And that gets back to our profession as accountants, because we are the key advisors to SMEs. Sure, our SME clients need legal advice, they need marketing advice, they need computer advice, but the profession that embraces all of that, because they need advice and information daily, weekly, monthly, and then repeated daily, weekly, monthly during the year, is you, is the accounting, business advisor, bookkeeper groups that can supply those services to help our SMEs survive and thrive in business. So then you can be talking to the intermediaries so that your clients understand what that process is, who the intermediaries are, because they need to then gain a feeling of satisfaction that they can deal with those individuals, especially the ones they're happy to work with, because they're going to have a lot to do with them. Your client's going to need your assistance to offer real-time advice on a range of issues. Some, you might say, are not accounting, but your clients will all need up-to-date websites, and they should be communicating with podcasts and webinars of what their activities are, because the intermediary will want them to have had some exposure in the marketplace. Now, they can't go saying at this stage that they're looking for shareholder funds, but they can talk about what their vision is, what they're trying to achieve. And they can send newsletters out to their customers, their suppliers, and anyone else that's asked for details of them. So on their website, they can supply this information, so that when the intermediary is ready to launch the capital raising process to raise $500,000 or $1 million, or perhaps the full $5 million, there is some knowledge of the company in the marketplace. So there's some interesting challenges that can be undertaken. And this is work that we've covered within the financial forecasting package developed by ESS BIZTOOLS. So let's summarize a few of those items. Your clients need weekly financial insights and advice. That starts with daily. Now, daily in most organizations is a one-page report. It highlights the key data from yesterday, but very importantly, if something went wrong, it needs to be summarized. And hopefully, also included in that would be how we've fixed it, how the problem's been fixed. On a weekly basis, there's a very strong desire to prepare the weekly performance and profitability reports. This is an analysis of individual businesses. I think this is one of the most significant variations between how the big end of town operate and how SMEs operate. I was the Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary of a listed public company. We're involved in the meat industry, export meat works, retail butcher shops, small goods factories, freezer stores, all sorts of business operations, transport operations. But each of those operations had a weekly performance and profitability report prepared. And that is what happens throughout the meat industry. It's what's happened in a wide range of larger businesses. Woolworths, Coles, IGA, all prepare weekly performance and profitability reports for their stores. Now, the benefit that gives them is that if they get an adverse result, they immediately start looking for what caused that problem to occur. Their expectation for a particular operation may have been a gross profit percentage of 38%. They've only achieved 22%. They want to know now why that occurred. And normally that's a discussion that's taking place before Tuesday midday for weeks ending up until a Saturday or Sunday. Because all that information is then getting funneled through to the head office of those organisations, where in the company I was with, that information used to arrive Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evenings, Wednesday morning. And by lunchtime, I used to sit down and have a sandwich with the CEO, and we would go through the results. And he'd always ask me, which of the entities or the operations that didn't achieve target, Peter? And I'd have them in one little pile. It was always a fairly small pile. And in the others, I had everything else. He never looked at anything else. He was concerned with who had not achieved the targets. And then he would be ringing the area manager. We had area managers in running each operation because they were expected to have already found the problem because they knew about it probably 24 hours before this conversation was taking place. And then they would find the problem and fix it. So there was very little chance that the cause of the problem, whether it was fraud, whether it was miscalculations, whether it was a machinery problem, whatever caused it, a pricing error, there was little chance that it was going to continue again. It may have continued for the first 3 days of the next week, of course, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But after that, it should have been fixed and out of the way. What happens with your SME clients? Please, let's take a little break for a few seconds. I want you to think about it. What happens? How does your client find that there was fraud in their business this week? How do they find that there wasn't a miscalculation in the computer system? Wrong data was put in. Computers are wonderful, but if you put the wrong data in, they will make mistakes. Would that have been picked up in your clients on the information they get? Because the vast majority of SMEs who are not working in conjunction with an accounting firm to supply ongoing accounting services won't be getting that information. They're too busy running the business. They've gone on. So that problem could in fact stay embedded in that business for months. And if it's fraud, it could stay embedded because, gee, we got away with it. No one raised any questions. We'll continue to do whatever they're doing illegally. So what happens then? We get to the end of the financial year and you're involved then preparing an annual set of accounts and a tax return. But it may be October, November, or even January, February of the following financial year before you're having any sort of review of that client's books and records. You say to the client, geez, your performance for the year was down a bit. Last year you made 37%. You know, you told us you thought you'd make 37 to 39% gross profit percentage overall this year. And you've only come in at about 22, 23%. So the problem was embedded in the system. By introducing the 52-week business enhancement system, you will work towards overcoming those sort of problems, just as the big end of town does. And with today's technology, software, and communications facilities, just like we're using here, you can deliver that service. Your clients paying a proportion of the fee or the costs that they would pay if they employed a full-time accountant or chief financial officer, whatever you want to call that person. The equivalent might be that you're supplying services that equate to a day a week. This is part of the conversation that we need to have with SMEs to outline the seriousness of the problems that they're encountering and how you can assist them. So please think about it. And one of the real roles I think you'll be playing also is the what ifs. I got what ifs every day when I was in that position in a public company, and some were quite early of a morning, especially if the CEO was overseas. I think he tried to pretend that he wasn't quite certain what the time was in Australia when he rang. But it was basic questions. Could we do this? Could we do that? Can you have a costing exercise done? So the predictive accounting reports should be aligned to the business goals. There's a need to make sure all of the internal systems are working properly. And there is an opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, for you to be involved in looking at the capital raising opportunities for your client. And crucially, you don't need to do all this yourself. If you're the partner or senior manager and you're sitting there thinking, geez, how are we going to get all this done? Your team can do it. And what's this do to your accounting team? Gives them interesting and challenging work. Bit different to just sitting there doing tax returns all day. And I think it will assist you to attract talent and retain talent. I hear from accountants all over Australia who are saying to me, do you know anyone who's looking for a job, Peter? Because we're having trouble getting someone. When I sit down and talk to or get on the phone or the Zoom and talk to those firms, I find that 96% of their income is coming from the taxation area. I say to them, you've got to diversify it. You've got to make the work interesting. This younger generation don't want to sit there and do tax returns all day. We need the variety. We need to show them where all this starts in the client. So the package will assist you to guide your clients on improving the practical things around their business. How do they manage their debtors? Is there a system? There should be systems for everything, and that's what the ESS BIZTOOLS packages will assist you to introduce. Suppliers, there should be a system to make sure that a client's thought through if they're going to switch one supplier to another. Not to terminate their current supply arrangements until they've entered into firm agreements with the new supplier on price, on payment times. Monitoring the ATO obligations is obviously very important for all clients, because the ATO is not as tolerant as what they were a couple of years ago when we had COVID. One of the other big items that flows out of this regular reporting is key performance indicators and business metrics. And that was one of my big surprises when I first went into a public company environment, having previously worked in a chartered accountancy firm after I qualified, was the need for data. And the fact that many, even of the leadership team, really couldn't read a profit and loss account or a balance sheet, but they knew the key performance indicators that they should have achieved. They knew other business metrics because they'd been absorbed into their brain over the years. They knew what they were, and they were looking for that sort of data. You need to make sure that your people understand it as well. Another area that you will need to look at is directors' responsibilities and governance. And we have that covered in our system so that you can assist the directors to understand their broader responsibilities. If you were contemplating suggesting to your client that they should bring in some external investors, I think you need to be very much aware that if your clients are not very familiar with directors' duties and responsibilities, you should be politely suggesting to them that they participate in the training course that you can deliver to them, or they take a week off and go and participate in the Australian Institute of Company Directors diploma course and understand the full tranche of responsibilities of a director. But in the first instance, I'd be suggesting that you can mentor them with our material to assist you, because you don't want to have a situation where your client feels inferior because as part of the new investors coming into the group, there's a couple of new directors gone on the board and they're experienced. Well, they make out they're experienced. So that's the overview of what we envisage that your role can be to assist your client to grow and survive, utilising material which we have developed within ESS BIZTOOLS to assist you to unlock the real value that exists within your clients, but also within your own firm. I'd very much like to talk to you on a one-on-one basis in a Zoom meeting if you have questions or you would like me to go through and give you an overview of the type of services that our packages would assist you to supply. You tell me a bit about your firm, I'll give you some advice as to what I think the product package that you need to deliver those services. So please send me an email, peter@ESS BIZTOOLS, if you would like to receive that sort of service. If in the meanwhile you want to know a bit more about ESS BIZTOOLS, why not go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au. Then you can look at the various packages which we've got. We've got 3 main product packages. We have the starter package, which covers accountants, bookkeepers, business advisors starting off on this journey of offering advisory services. And then we have the advanced package. Now, the advanced package includes everything in the starter package plus more. And it's really designed for an accounting firm that's been dabbling in a bit of advisory work. Perhaps your income split's currently 90% taxation type services, 10% advisory. Well, you want to go a bit further now. And then we got the financial forecasting package, which includes everything from the first 2 packages. They roll into it together with a whole range of information along the lines that I've been talking to you about today. But if you want to, you can subscribe for standalone packages. If you're only interested in research and development, you can subscribe for that package on its own. We have a training program whereby we present training seminars, webinars each month for our various packages. We have regular newsletters, and we've got a whole range of material in our system. We also produce a monthly newsletter for you to badge and send to your clients called Business Plus. And this comments on services that you could offer to your clients. And we see it as a marketing tool that you then follow up and talk to the client and say, did you read that article about crowdsource funding equity raising? You said to me recently you might need some funding for your business. Does that interest you? And what that is doing is opening up the door, because I think it's been very unfortunate that our profession has the reputation with SMEs of primarily concentrating on taxation. And Business Plus newsletter is helping you to communicate the message that you can supply a wider range of services. So thank you for participating in this podcast today. As always, if you've got any comments, criticisms, or suggestions, I would love to hear from you. Send me an email, please, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Sorry, I'll say that again. peter@essbiztools.com.au, and I will get back to you. Stay safe. Have a great day. Goodbye.